Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to speak about an important piece of legislation that's going to be before the Senate shortly that will help women entrepreneurs across the country break a glass ceiling. Earlier this year, as chairwoman of the Senate Committee on Small Business and Entrepreneurship, I released a report entitled 21st Century Barriers to Women Entrepreneurship in the United States. These barriers, according to our report, showed that women entrepreneurs were not getting a fair shot at access to capital, not getting a fair shot at competing for federal contracts, needed more programs tailored specifically to their needs, and certainly needed more access to capital at smaller amounts of money. So this chart shows the various things that were relevant from that report: equal access to federal contracts, access to capital, and relevant business training. We heard an earful from women entrepreneurs all across America, but to find out that women's access to capital in the United States through both the SBA and through conventional banking loans to small businesses were such a small percentage of the U.S. economy, it spurred us to take action on that report and to make major changes. That is why we introduced legislation called the Small Business Women Entrepreneurship Act. And this legislation did three things. It said, let's focus on sole source contracting authority for women-owned businesses when they're working with the federal government. Let's improve the counseling to women, and let's make sure that they get the access to capital that they deserve. Additionally, that issue of sole source contracting was taken up by two of my colleagues, Senator Shaheen and Senator Gillibrand. And I should say that my predecessor to the committee, Senator Landrieu, had worked on this issue of access to capital for women for a long time, and we certainly applaud all of her leadership as the chairwoman of the Small Business Committee. So this sole sourcing contract provision is in legislation that is coming over from the House of Representatives and will be part of the defense bill that we're going to be taking up shortly. I want to thank all my colleagues for working on this issue. As I said, Senator Shaheen, Senator Gillibrand, Senator Landrieu, and also the SBA Administrator, Maria Contreras-Sweet, for her support in trying to focus on how we get more access to capital for women. There are 8 million women-owned businesses in the United States, but only a tiny percent, about 4%, get federal contracts. I think we have a second chart that shows a little bit about or describing this problem. We have a federal goal of making sure that small businesses get access by each federal agency, so that we're doing all we can to grow small businesses in America. If you think about it, they have the technological expertise to do the work. What they don't have is the manpower to navigate months and months and months of contracting, various things they have to leap through for working with the federal government. So sole sourcing contracting allows the federal government to streamline the procurement process when selecting a company and allows them to work with smaller contract amounts. This can be beneficial to small businesses that have, as I said, the technical expertise to do the goods and services for the taxpayers, but don't have the ability to wade through these lengthy federal contracts. So we want to make sure that this is changed, and the FYNDAA legislation will do just that. 20 years ago, Congress established the goal of rewarding 5% of all federal contracts to women-owned businesses, but we did not make sure that there was fair representation in the marketplace. So last year, the Department of Defense provided 68% of the federal procurement opportunities for these small businesses throughout federal contracting. Yet the Department of Defense only issued 3.6% of those contracts to women-owned small businesses. In my state, the state of Washington, we received only 1.67% of those federal contracts. And we heard from women across America as they came to testify before the Small Business Committee exactly how challenging this process is. So I want to put up a last chart that just shows the percentage of women-owned small businesses in the United States at 28%, which we certainly want to increase. We want to increase. Part of our challenge economically is we want to take various groups and make sure that they are getting access to capital, getting the job training, getting into the economy by being small business people. And so we want to grow the 28% number, but we can see over here that the percentage of women-owned businesses who are getting access to these contracts is minuscule. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to help these women. One woman, as I said, from the state of Washington said at the hearing, "I can tell you that the access to the federal marketplace is a huge issue. ABN Technologies has grown to employ 12 people last year and generated $8.1 million. Sole sourcing contracting would help millions of women break through the barriers of accessing these contracts." Digital Hands in Tampa, Florida, a company that is owned by a woman, Charlotte Baker, provides cybersecurity services and IT business to the government. Her company is developing new innovation solutions to deter cyber threats. So that's a service that we need, but she may never win a contract through the regular process. So I want to encourage my colleagues to support this legislation that's coming over from the House, and particularly support this provision that was included in the legislation. There are other things that we will be talking about later in the week as it relates to the other challenges of providing the tools for women entrepreneurs to grow in America, but this one, making sure that they get fair access to the federal marketplace so that they can get access to federal contracts, are going to help women entrepreneurs who are delivering great products and services deliver their products in the federal marketplace. I thank the President, and I yield the floor.